The mall tried very hard to be Christmas. Music leaked from stores, bells chimed out of sight, light bounced off glass and tile until everything seemed to sparkle. At a small table near the railing beneath a plastic garland, Elena Park sat with both hands around a paper cup that no longer steamed. From far away, she might have looked like she was waiting for someone in line. Up close, the wait had already ended. Her shoulders leaned in, her hair fell forward to hide her expression. The napkin under her cup was creased and damp, where tears had landed and been wiped away too fast. She watched mouths. The cashier calling out numbers at the burger place. The teenager arguing with his mother. The security guard joking with a coworker. Their lips-shaped sounds she had not heard in 13 years. Sounds that now lived only as silent patterns her eyes could trace. Her phone lit up beside the cup. The glow pulled her gaze down. Elena wiped her palms on her jeans, pulled the phone closer, and unlocked it. One new text waited at the bottom of the family thread. "Mom, emergency. We can't make it tonight. We'll reschedule." Above it, the tiny icon showed it had been seen. No one typed anything more. Elena read the sentence until the words hollowed out. Emergency. We. Reschedule. A soft excuse dressed like concern. She scrolled up. Her father in a tux at a hospital fundraiser. Her mother in a red suit in front of a new listing. Caroline on courthouse steps with her colleagues. Her half-brothers in identical sweaters on the staircase in the big house. One photo from last Christmas, the tree scraping the ceiling, everyone lined up. She stood at the end of the row, almost pushed out of frame, smiling with her mouth more than with her eyes. Her hands hung at her sides, fingers curled in against her palms. She scrolled back down. No second message. No separate text meant only for her. No, are you already there? Can you get home safe? Her thumb hovered over the keyboard. She typed, "It's okay," then erased it and set the phone face down. The mall tree loomed in the center of the atrium, plastic branches reaching toward the skylight, wrapped in careful spirals of light. A little boy in a blue coat dragged his father closer, boots sliding on damp tiles. He slipped. The man caught him and swung him up without effort. The boy's laugh opened his whole face. Something in Elena's chest pulled tight and stayed there. She picked up her gloves from the table. The knit was thin and pilled, bought from a discount bin last winter. A hole was starting at the base of the thumb on the right one. She slid her hands in anyway. The fabric scratched before it warmed. Her fingers were already slow in the cold. It made drawing harder each December. Beside the cup sat a white envelope, its corners softened. It looked out of place among the red and gold around her. She lifted the flap and checked inside again. A watercolor card she had painted showed a living room with a tree and 4 faceless figures on a couch. Behind it was a folded sheet from the copy shop printer. Her name sat at the top in bold letters, followed by the word winner and the title of an international illustration competition. At the bottom was the name of a gallery in New York and an invitation to an opening in the spring. She had pictured handing this envelope across a table tonight, her mother's mouth forming wow, her father leaning in, Caroline's eyebrows lifting just a little. Instead, the envelope lay on a food court table under humming lights. Her transit app still showed the thin blue line of her train ride here from her small apartment on the west side to this crowded center. She had cleaned the apartment before she left, even though no one else would ever see it, turned off the lamps and closed the door on a room that went very quiet in an instant. She had dressed as if tonight mattered. Cream sweater, navy coat that smelled lightly of espresso from her shift at the coffee shop, mascara she almost never used. In the bathroom mirror, she had practiced a casual smile. She had imagined her mother's reflection behind her. "You look nice. I like your hair like that." Now the smells of grease and sugar and peppermint pressed in. Somewhere a child squealed by the small carousel. Elena felt the tremor through the plastic chair and the soles of her boots, a vibration without sound. A group of college students hurried past, brushing melting snow from their sleeves. One bumped her chair hard enough to slosh her drink. She flinched, mouthed an apology he never heard. He did not look back. The red digits on the clock over the burger place flipped from 6 to 16 to 6:17. Her family had told her to be here at 5:30. "Be on time this year," Caroline had written. "We have reservations." Elena had arrived 20 minutes early. Her cocoa was cold. Her hands were finally warm inside the thin gloves. Her phone lay face down beside the cup, perfectly still, while the mall around her shimmered and moved. On the other side of the food court, Jack Miller pushed the last piece of cinnamon roll across the table. "Not hungry?" Lily asked. "You stole all the icing," he said. "I am protesting." She laughed, sugar on her lips and nose. Her feet swung under the chair, thumping the metal bar. Around them, the air smelled like fried food and coffee. A wet trail from melting snow cut across the tiles. "Look," Lily said, pointing toward the atrium. They turned the big tree on. The giant tree in the center of the mall glowed lights wrapped tight around plastic branches. Families crowded the railing, faces washed in red and white. A toddler in a puffy coat wriggled free and ran toward the display until someone caught him. Jack watched for a moment, then looked back at Lily. Glitter from some school project clung to her sleeves. Her braid had come loose so that strands of hair spilled over one shoulder. Her sneakers were splitting at the toes. He tucked that away for later. New shoes, another bill. "Did you give Mrs. Lewis her card?" he asked. "She put it on the wall," Lily said, "next to the snowflakes. She said I used color really well." "She is right," Jack said. He spoke slowly, his mouth easy to read. An old habit from years ago when a coworker at the community center had told him to face people when he talked. Let them see, not just hear. Lily kept talking about school. Jack nodded and sipped his coffee. It was lukewarm and a little burnt. The sounds of the mall blurred together in his head. The hiss from the fryer, the buzz of the lights, someone calling out an order. Across the way, a woman in a navy coat sat alone at a small table. He had seen her when they sat down and forgotten her. Now, with the lights of the tree spilling past her shoulder, she drew his eye again. Her cup sat untouched, her gloved hands wrapped around it. Her shoulders were hunched, her head bowed, not in sleep, but like she was trying to fold in on herself. "Dad," Lily said quietly. He pulled his eyes back. "Yeah?" She flicked a glance over his shoulder. "That lady is crying." Jack turned just enough to see. The woman's hair fell forward, but he caught the quick sweep of her fingers under one eye. Her mouth was tight. Her throat moved as she swallowed. "It happens," he said. "Long day, crowds, holidays." Lily watched her a moment longer. "It feels different," she said. He checked again. The woman was not staring at the tree. She was watching people. Her eyes moved from face to face, following a cashier's laugh, a security guard's joke, a group of teens talking by the soda machines. Her gaze fixed on their mouths, not their eyes. When they turned away, she looked down fast. Something in Jack's chest tightened. At the community center, Marcus had watched like that. He would tap the table to get Jack's attention, before signing hands spelling the same complaint over and over. "People think I am ignoring them. They never think I did not hear." Jack had learned the alphabet a handful of signs. Enough for hello, thank you, I am listening. He had not used them in years. His fingers flexed on his coffee cup now as if they remembered. "Daddy," Lily said, "I think she cannot hear." He looked at his daughter. Her brows were drawn together. Her voice was soft. "What makes you think that?" he asked. "She is watching everybody's mouths," Lily said. And when that man bumped her chair, she said sorry. He did not even look back. Jack saw the scene replay in his mind. The bump, the small jerk of the woman's shoulders, her lips moving sounds swallowed by the food court. He glanced at the table again. Her phone lay face down. An envelope sat under one hand. She was not scrolling, not checking the time. She was just sitting there still while the night moved. "We do not know her," he said. "She is alone," Lily answered. The word hung between them. Alone. Jack thought of nights in his apartment, Lily asleep in the next room, him standing at the sink, listening to the hum of the fridge. Before she came along, that same quiet had felt like something much heavier. "Sometimes people want to be left alone," he said. Lily's eyes went back to the woman, then to him. "Do you?" He did not answer. Her hand slid across the table, small fingers curling around his wrist. Cool skin, a little sticky with sugar. "Can we just check if she is okay?" she asked. The easy answer came first. No, not our business. The world had enough hurt. He had enough to carry. He looked at the woman in the navy coat again, at her shoulders, at the way her hands tightened on the cup. Then he looked at Lily. She was hoping for yes and bracing for no. Jack let out a slow breath. "Okay," he said, "we can check." Lily's face lit. She scrubbed her hands on a napkin and hopped down from her chair. He caught her sleeve before she could dart into the flow of people. "Remember what we talked about," he said. "Eye level, not too close. Let her see your mouth." "And the signs," Lily said. "And the signs," he agreed. They stepped away from their table and into the slow stream of shoppers. Coats brushed their arms. Bags bumped their knees. Jack adjusted their path so he would walk into the woman's view, not up behind her. Halfway across the food court, Lily slipped her hand into his. Her fingers tightened around his when someone squeezed past. He gave her hand a small squeeze back and kept walking toward the woman in the navy coat who sat alone under the bright tree. They were 3 tables away when Elena looked up. Jack stopped where he was and let Lily bump into his side. He lifted his hand and drummed his fingers once on the table nearest her, just enough to send a small vibration through the surface. Her eyes flicked toward the sound she could not hear, following the movement instead. They found his hand, then his face. For a second she just stared, caught between alert and exhausted. He smiled, not wide, just enough to soften his mouth. He raised one hand, palm toward her fingers loose. "Hi," he said, shaping the word clearly. His other hand struggled into a sign he had not used in years. He touched his chest, then pointed at her, then curled his fingers slightly. "Are you okay?" Elena blinked. The familiar pattern of the sign arrived through the static in her chest. It was slow and clumsy, not quite right, but close enough. Her throat tightened. She had not seen anyone speak to her like that in months. Her gaze jumped from his hands to his lips, reading the echo of the question there. "Are you okay?" For a half breath, she thought about nodding, about letting him walk away. She felt how tight her fingers were around the cup. She loosened them and set it down. "I am fine," she signed. Her hands were steady, her eyes were not. Beside Jack, Lily shifted her weight from foot to foot. When Elena's attention slid to her, the little girl straightened her back and lifted both hands into the air between them. "Hello," Lily said. Her mouth formed the word slow and exaggerated. Her fingers crooked into the shape Jack had shown her in the car, thumb brushing her index finger. "My name is Lily." She signed it like a short, broken dance, a couple of letters out of order. The sign was messy. It was also so earnest that Elena's face changed in an instant. The tightness around her mouth eased. Her eyes, still glossy, warmed. A sound came out of her, small and rough. It surprised her as much as it surprised them. A laugh that scraped its way up from a place she had forgotten. She lifted her own hands. "Hello, my name is Elena." She signed carefully, each movement clear, slowing her natural speed so Lily could follow. She pointed to Lily's hands, then gave the sign for good. "You signed very good." Lily beamed. She looked up at Jack as if to check he had seen that. "Told you I remembered," she whispered. Jack, still watching Elena, signed again, piecing sentences together from the box of old vocabulary in his head. "I know little. Long time ago. A friend." He tapped his temple. "Remember some." He spoke as he signed for his own sake as much as hers, so his mouth matched the shapes his hands tried to make. She watched both. "Thank you," she signed. He did not try to say, "You are welcome." He was not sure he remembered the right motion and did not want to get it wrong in front of her. Instead, he pulled out a chair opposite hers and paused, brows lifting in a question. "May we sit?" Elena hesitated. The habit of guarding her space tugged at her. This was a stranger. Two strangers. The mall was full of people she could not hear, cameras she could not see, noise she could not break through if she needed help. Lily had already decided. The girl pulled out the chair next to Elena and sat without waiting, her legs too short to keep from swinging. Elena gave the smallest nod. Jack took the chair opposite her. Up close, she saw the lines at the corners of his eyes, dark circles that said late nights and early mornings. His jacket was clean but worn shiny at the elbows. There was a small streak of white paint on his left sleeve. He saw the small chips in her nail polish, the faint ink stain on her thumb, the soft indentation on the bridge of her nose, where glasses must sometimes sit. He pointed gently at her phone. Waiting for someone, he signed. Elena looked at the phone as if she had forgotten it was there. Her hand turned it over. The dark glass showed her reflection carved small between her hair and the bright ceiling. She unlocked it and opened the message thread. She set the screen where he could see, then moved it a little so Lily could see too. "Emergency. We can't make it tonight. We'll reschedule." The words were small but sharp. Jack read them once. His jaw tightened. He did not comment. Elena took the phone back, closed the thread, and put it farther from herself on the table. "Family," she signed. Then she drew a small square in the air, the sign for house. Then shook her head. They did not come. Lily's mouth pulled down. "That is mean," she said. Elena caught enough of it to understand. She gave a quick automatic shrug, as if to dismiss the thought, as if she ought to defend people who were not here. Jack leaned forward, a little, elbows resting on the clean part of the table. "I am sorry," he signed. His fingers moved more sure this time. He had used that phrase often. She nodded, the kind of nod people gave when there was nothing else to do. Her eyes dropped to the envelope under her hand. She pressed her palm over it, feeling the edges. "Are you hungry?" Lily asked. Elena glanced at her, at the empty tray and the crumbs of cinnamon roll. Lily turned her head toward Jack. "Can she eat some of mine if I get another one?" Jack almost smiled. "You already had one whole cinnamon roll." "It is Christmas," Lily said. "Almost. There should be two." He looked back at Elena. "We have food," he signed. Then slowly, "Your plans now?" She frowned slightly, trying to catch his meaning. He tried again. "Tonight. Do you go home, alone?" The last word he spelled, letter by letter, just in case. Her shoulders lifted and fell. She tipped her head to one side, searching for words that were simple enough to show in the small space between them. "I rent small place," she signed. Her hands drew a rectangle in front of her, then a little circle. "Just me." She touched her chest, then opened her palm toward the mall around them. "I did not want to sit there alone." She did not sign the rest. Did not sign that home when she closed the door, felt too quiet even for her. That her art pinned on the walls sometimes made the silence press harder. That she had dressed up tonight because she had believed for one brief day that she might belong at that long family table. Jack watched the way her throat moved as she swallowed back what she did not show. Lily leaned her elbows on the table chin in her hands. "We are not doing anything fancy," Lily said. "Just spaghetti, and the tree." Elena read her lips as the girl spoke, eyes flicking from her mouth to Jack's. He took a breath. "We are going home soon," he signed. "We eat. Decorate tree." He mimed hanging something on a branch. He let the idea sit for a moment before adding the next sign. "You can come." Her hands stilled completely. She stared at him as if she had misread. While he repeated the sign for welcome, she watched every movement with sharp attention. "For me," she signed, tipping her fingers toward her chest. "For you," he answered. Lily bounced a little in her chair. "You can see the star I made," she said. "It is crooked, but it is still a star." Elena looked from one to the other. Her mind ran through things in quick flashes. The apartments she cleaned for extra cash, where people kept their doors double locked and refused even a glass of water if offered. The safety videos that played on her phone while she folded laundry. Do not get in cars with strangers. Do not go home with people you just met. She studied Jack's face for any sign that this was a joke or a trap. His gaze stayed level. He did not flinch at her scrutiny. When he spoke his next sentence, he shaped each word carefully. "No pressure," he said out loud, then tried to catch the same on his hands. "You choose, if you want." The part of her that had taken the train here, that had put on mascara, that had painted a card, and slipped good news into an envelope, lifted its head. She imagined going back out into the cold, finding her seat on the train, letting the night fold around her in the familiar way. She pictured her apartment at the single string of cheap lights tacked over the window, the half-finished sketch on her desk. Lily's small hand slid across the table and landed on her wrist. Her fingers were warm from the cinnamon roll. She squeezed once. "You do not have to be by yourself," Lily said. The words were plain. They pressed right where the tightness sat in Elena's chest. Her throat worked. She looked down at the envelope, then at her gloves, then at the reflection of the tree in the dark surface of her cup. "Okay," she signed. She signed. Her hands trembled just slightly enough that she noticed and steadied them on the edge of the table. "I will come." Lily let out a breath that was almost a cheer. Jack's shoulders eased in a way he did not show on his face. He stood and picked up her empty tray without comment. It gave him something to do while she slipped on her gloves and slid the envelope into her coat. When he came back, he stepped to one side, letting her walk between him and Lily. The three of them moved toward the wide opening of the food court, toward the glowing tree and the thick glass doors that led out into the December night. They passed under the shadow of the giant tree. Up close, the branches looked more plastic than pine, but the lights were soft and warm. Gold and red flickered in Lily's eyes as she tilted her head back to see the top. "That star is not as good as mine," she said. Elena watched her mouth as she spoke, then followed her gaze upward. The tree reached almost to the skylight, its top lost against the reflections in the glass. The lights blurred for a moment as Elena's eyes stung. She blinked hard and brought things back into focus. "Ready?" Jack asked. He raised his brows with the question and pointed toward the main corridor that led to the exits. Elena nodded. She adjusted the strap of her bag on her shoulder and touched the envelope inside her coat, a quick check that it was still there. They joined the slow current of people moving away from the food court. Coats brushed against Elena's sleeves. Someone's perfume trailed behind them, sweet and sharp at the same time. A father carried a sleeping child on his shoulder, the little girl's head lolling against his neck. Elena kept Lily on her left so she could see her if she spoke Jack just ahead of her. The mall buzzed with the strange energy of Christmas Eve. Last-minute shoppers hurried past with half-wrapped boxes sticking out of bags. A man in a Santa suit leaned against a wall, his hat-off white beard pushed down, drinking from a water bottle. Elena's eyes tracked everything without quite landing. Her body hummed with alertness that had nothing to do with the crowd and everything to do with the idea of what she had just agreed to. The overhead lights flickered. It was small at first, a blink of brightness like tired eyes closing for a second. Then they came back on. Elena's shoulders twitched. Lily reached up for Jack's hand. He took it without looking his attention on the moving line ahead. The lights flickered again. This time they stayed off long enough for the whole world to change. For a heartbeat, the mall dropped into a deep, thick dimness. The giant tree held its glow floating in the sudden dark like a separate thing. Emergency strips along the floor blinked to life in a weak green. Around them the air shifted. For Jack it was sound first. The cheerfulness of background music cut out. Voices rose too high all at once. Someone laughed too loud. Someone else swore. For Elena it was motion. Heads turned, bodies swiveled toward the ceiling. Mouths opened at the same time. The rhythm of stride and turn and reach changed. The whole crowd jerked like a single startled animal. Her chest tightened under her coat. The lights came back in half measure, not the full bright wash from before, but scattered pools from emergency fixtures. Shadows stretched in new directions. The glittering storefronts turned dull. The overhead speakers moved. A square in the middle of the ceiling flashed red. A security announcement began silent to Elena, but visible on the shape of the box and the way every head tilted slightly, everyone pausing to listen. She could not hear the voice. She could only see the change it made in other people. The last time the lights had gone out around her, she had been 14. It had not been the whole house, just the inside of a closet. Her sister's hand had covered the latch. Just for a second, Mia had said, lip gloss, shining eyes, bright with mischief. Just till the thunder stops. Elena had stepped inside. It had been a game until the door clicked shut and stayed shut. She had banged her fists against the wood. No sound came back to her. The storm raged outside, invisible. She felt it only through the shutter of the house. Each flash of lightning that crept in under the crack beneath the door seemed to take the air with it. Her throat had gone raw from shouting words she could not hear. The dark had pressed close, thick and oppressive. She had imagined footsteps that might never come. When the door finally opened, her mother had frowned at the scuff marks on the paint. "You overreact," she had said, pulling Elena out by the arm. "You always do this." Now in the mall, the memory rose swift and sharp. The emergency lights smeared over polished floors. Shoppers shifted in uncertain waves. Elena's breath quickened. The space around her shrank. Her hearing had already taken one sense from her. Darkness felt like losing the rest. Jack stepped in front of her. He did not touch her at first. He only moved so that he was directly in her line of sight, blocking the nearest strangers. His lips were moving. His brows were drawn together. She could not hear the words, but she knew the shape of his mouth when he said her name. She forced her focus onto his hands. He lifted them between them, fingers spread to catch what light there was. "Do not be afraid," he signed. He made the motion slow and clear, his shoulders steady. Behind him, the world wobbled. Kids cried. A stroller wheel rattled over a threshold. The emergency alarm in the distance flashed again, throwing red on the ceiling. His hands continued. "With me. Stay where you can see me." Her heart banged against her ribs. It made her lungs feel small, like the closet again, like air running out. She swallowed hard once, twice. She nodded because she could not make herself do anything bigger. He offered his hand, then palm up. He did not reach for her wrist or elbow, did not try to pull her. She stared at his hand. The skin was rougher than hers, darker at the knuckles. A faint white line cut across one finger, an old scar. He had kept those hands very still as he signed to her. Now they waited. Her own hand, still gloved, lifted. She set her fingers in his. His grip closed around them firm and warm. Lily moved closer to Elena's other side, her small hand catching on Elena's coat sleeve, as if to anchor herself too. "Is it a fire?" Lily asked, voice pitched high. Jack glanced over his shoulder. His mouth moved in answer, but he kept them walking. Clusters of people had stopped in the middle of the corridor to stare at the partly dark ceiling. Others pressed toward the exits faster. A security guard in a yellow vest stepped into their path, one palm out. He spoke. His mouth moved fast. His gestures were sharp. Elena could not read his lips in the broken light. The red flashes from the speaker cut across his features at odd angles. For a second, his arm across the passage looked like a barrier that would not move. Heat rushed up her neck. Her hand tightened on Jack's. She wanted to pull back to retreat, but there was nowhere to go. People pressed close behind them. Someone brushed her shoulder more roughly than they meant to, their bag catching on her coat. She flinched and half-turned. A man squeezed past with a muttered comment, his face impatient. His mouth was a blur. Jack shifted to stand between her and the guard. He let go of Elena long enough to lift his hands and talk with his whole body. "All good," he said, enunciating. "She is with me. My kid is with me. We are heading out." He pointed toward the doors, then back at Elena, then to his own chest. The guard responded, lips forming the words, lights and storm, and nothing serious. His eyes flicked over Elena with that quick assessment people did when they hit something they did not fully understand. Jack did not flinch from the look. He held the guard's gaze a beat longer than necessary. The guard sighed, dropped his hand, and stepped aside to deal with someone who was shouting at him from the other direction. Jack turned back, already lifting one hand to sign. "He gone, you safe, almost outside." He did not bother with perfect grammar. Her eyes were on his hands again, on the path he was cutting through the chaos. He reached for her hand once more. This time she took his without thinking. They moved forward in fits. The crowd pulse carried them, then stalled, then carried them again. Lily stayed close, her fingers wrapped now, not just in Elena's sleeve but in her gloved hand tucked between Elena's fingers and Jack's. The sounds she could not hear still reached Elena in other ways. The thud of someone bumping into her back. The vibration of hurried footsteps through the floor. A faint tremor in the air that said somebody nearby had raised their voice. The glass doors grew larger. The closer they came, the more the outside took over the view. The sky beyond the glass was a flat white, no horizon, no clear edge between snow and night. Wind pressed against the doors in occasional gusts that rattled the metal frames. Elena's breath misted the air in front of her face. Her heart was still pounding, but the tight band around it loosened with each step toward the pale rectangle of the exit. Jack tightened his grip as they reached the doors themselves. He used his free hand to push against the metal bar. The door gave way with a reluctant groan. Cold reached through the opening at once, filling the space around them. Snowflakes hit Elena's cheeks sharp and wet. The air outside felt bigger. The sky, even with its low clouds and blowing flakes, felt wider than the ceiling behind them, even in its half-light. They stepped over the threshold together, out of the crowded dim, and into the white noise of the storm that she could not hear, but could feel in every part of her skin. The cold hit like a wall. Snow blew sideways across the parking lot, flattening the world into shades of gray and white. The big floodlights on tall poles painted wide circles on the asphalt, but the falling flakes broke the beams into shimmering curtains. Wind pushed against Elena's coat, slipping under the hem and up her sleeves. Her cheeks prickled. Her ears, even useless, stung from the temperature. Breath fogged in front of her mouth in short, uneven bursts. Jack let the door close behind them with a solid thump. The noise barely registered for Elena, just a faint feeling in the air as the mall sealed itself off at their backs. He pointed across the rows of cars, speaking while he did. "This way," he said. She saw his lips shape the words, and the tilt of his head matched them. Lily trudged ahead, a half-step boots crunching through a thin crust of snow. Her scarf trailed in the wind like a loose ribbon. The lot was a maze of vehicles in different stages of being buried. Some windshields were already white. Snow had piled in the corners of the wipers. Footprints stitched shallow paths between them, already half filled in. Elena watched Lily's prints appear, then soften behind them. Each one looked clear and separate for a second, before blurring into the general whiteness. Jack led them to an older sedan near the outer rows. The car was a dull blue under the film of snow. One headlight cover was fogged inside. The rear bumper carried a strip of duct tape from some forgotten scrape. "This is us," he said, looking at Elena as he spoke. He opened the back door and brushed snow from the seat with his sleeve. Lily climbed in, bouncing a little as the springs complained. Her breath puffed against the window, leaving a ghostly patch. "Seatbelt," Jack said, and Lily clicked hers into place with exaggerated importance. He went around to the passenger side and opened the front door for Elena. The small courtesy startled her. Her family had taught her to move quickly, to not be in the way. No one had held a door like this in a long time. Snow collected on the top edge of the open door. She ducked and slid into the seat, careful not to bang her knees. The upholstery felt cold through her jeans. She pulled the belt across her chest, fingers fumbling for the buckle until it snapped shut. Jack closed her door gently, then came around to his side. He stamped his boots twice on the mat before getting in, bringing a gust of air with him. The car smelled faintly of old coffee and the kind of lemon cleaner used on dashboards. He turned the key in the ignition. The engine coughed, then caught. The faint vibration ran up through Elena's spine, letting her know it was alive. He twisted the heater dial up. The fan whirred. Warm air crept out, slow, still cooler than their breath. Lily leaned forward between the seats, her chin on the top of the backrest. "This is the first time we had someone else in the car for Christmas," she said. Elena watched her mouth, then lifted her hands into the tighter space between them. "Thank you for inviting me," she signed. She aimed it toward Lily and Jack both. Lily looked to her father. "She said thanks," Jack translated. He glanced at Elena and added his own fingers, stumbling through a reply. "You are welcome." The sign was not perfect, but she understood. He flicked the wipers on. The blades scraped across the glass, clearing narrow arcs. New snow stuck almost immediately. He shifted the car into gear. The tires spun once on the slick surface, then caught. They rolled forward between the rows of parked vehicles, the headlights carving out a tunnel through the storm. Outside, the mall loomed in the rearview mirror for a moment, a bright block in the white air. Then it faded as distance and weather swallowed it. Inside the car, sound changed. For Elena, it was not that things went quiet. It was that the visual noise settled. Light came from just two small sources now, the dashboard and the blurred street lamps ahead. Movements were contained in the frame of the windshield and the mirror. Her thumb stroked the seam of her glove. The heat from the vents reached her knuckles first, then her fingers. Jack kept both hands on the wheel. His eyes flicked between the road, the rear view, the speedometer. He drove slower than the posted limits, letting the car crawl rather than race. "So," he said after a minute. He glanced sideways, making sure she could see him. "Elena, right." She nodded. He tapped his chest. "Jack," then pointed his thumb over his shoulder. "Lily." He spelled the letters for each name on one hand, a little rusty but legible. She watched and then repeated their names in sign, taking care with the shapes. She touched her own chest again. "Elena." He smiled. "Hi, Elena," he said, exaggerating the greeting like Lily had done. Lily poked his shoulder. "You forgot to tell her what you do." "You are very interested in my resume tonight," he said. "It is important information," Lily said, "for new friends." He exhaled through his nose, a sound she did not hear, then shifted one hand briefly from the wheel to sign. "I fix things," he said. "Air heat pipes." He mimed turning a wrench, then flicked his fingers like sparks. "Buildings. Maintenance," she guessed. She nodded to show she understood. He put his hand back on the wheel quickly as they took a curve. The snow on the road blurred the painted lines. The world beyond the headlights was a soft white wall. Lily pressed her forehead to the side window, leaving a crescent of fog. "What do you do?" she asked, words muffled by the glass. Elena caught enough of it and answered with her hands. "I draw." She made the sign for drawing one hand an invisible page, the other an invisible pencil. Lily pulled back to look at her fully. "She draws," Lily told her father. "I saw that," Jack said. "I am not that old." He glanced at Elena again. "Art he signed." She nodded and added books. "Pictures for books." Lily's mouth rounded. "You make book pictures, like the ones with animals that wear coats." Sometimes Elena signed. The idea of explaining the award in the New York Gallery and the envelope pressed inside her coat felt heavy. The words crowded up and then fell back. Lily grinned. "That is cool," she said. "I try to draw, but my horses look like potatoes." "The best horses start as potatoes," Jack said. The road ahead dipped slightly. Plows had not yet made it through this stretch. The snow lay thick lines of it curling along the edges where passing cars had thrown it. A traffic light glowed red up ahead, its color washed pale by the falling snow. Jack slowed them to a stop. The car idled. The heater sighed. Outside, the storm seemed to have grown. Flakes swarmed through the beams of their headlights, swirling and colliding. Elena watched them mesmerized. Each tiny piece fell on its own path, then merged into the same white cover. In the pause, she became aware of how close the air felt in the car. Close, but not tight like the closet. There was a rhythm to the rise and fall of breath around her, even if she could not hear it. The light changed to green. Jack eased his foot onto the gas. The tires rolled forward, then hit something slick. For a second, the world slipped sideways. The steering wheel jerked under his hands. The back of the car twitched out of line with the front. The view through the windshield tilted as the nose of the sedan slid toward the snowbank at the edge of the road. Elena felt the shift before she understood it. Her stomach dropped. Her shoulder leaned in a direction she had not chosen. Lily grabbed the back of Jack's seat. Jack's jaw clenched. He turned the wheel into the skid, just like the safety videos on winter driving had always insisted. His boot eased off the gas, then feathered the brake. The car yawed once like a boat in choppy water, then ground to a stop with a soft crunch. For a moment, everything stilled. Snow tapped against the glass in fine sheets. The headlights pointed at a close wall of white. They had kissed the edge of the drift. The bumper sat half buried. Elena's heart pounded. Her hands had flown to the dash without her realizing it. She pulled them back slowly and flexed her fingers to prove they could. In the rear view, Lily's eyes were wide. Her braid had slipped all the way over one shoulder. "I did not like that," Lily said. "Me neither," Jack said, breathing a little harder. He turned toward Elena, making sure she saw him. "I am sorry," he signed. He pointed toward the drift, then to his chest, taking the blame. She shook her head. "You kept us safe," she answered. "Thank you." The gratitude surprised her, but it was true. They had not spun. They had not hit anyone. They were just stuck in some snow. Jack scanned the road. No cars were immediately behind them. The storm had thinned traffic to a few slow pairs of headlights in the distance. He put the car in park and blew out a breath that fogged faintly in the cool cabin. "Stay here," he told Lily. "Do not unbuckle." She nodded, clutching the seatbelt strap with both hands. He looked at Elena, added a small sign to match his words. "Wait, you stay?" Before she could argue, he opened his door. Cold rushed in. Snowflakes spun across the dash and onto her jeans. Then the door shut again, and he was outside, swallowed by the swirl. Elena twisted in her seat. Through the windshield, she watched him circle to the front of the car. The headlights caught him from behind, throwing a long shadow ahead. Snow gathered on his shoulders and in his hair, as if he carried a piece of the sky. He planted his boots in the packed slush and bent his shoulder into the hood. His hands pressed, flat fingers spread wide for grip. His back rounded with the effort. The car shuddered. Inside, Elena felt the push through the frame. The sensation of movement without motion under her feet made her grip the edge of the seat. Jack rocked the car gently, weight-shifting boots digging for purchase. Each strain left his breath visible in the cold air when he paused. Lily leaned forward as far as her belt allowed, watching. "He is like a snowman who came to life," she said softly. Elena's lips twitched. Jack mouthed something that looked very much like, "Come on," at the car, then heaved again. The tires spun for a second, spraying slush behind. Then the front lifted a fraction, climbed the edge of the drift, and rolled backward onto slightly clearer ground. He stepped aside, fast, boots sliding. For a second he windmilled his arms, then caught himself standing upright again. He walked back to his door, brushing snow from his sleeves with quick strokes. His cheeks were red where the wind had hit them. His hair stuck up in damp spikes. When he opened the door, a gust of cold followed him. "Okay," he said, half to them, half to himself. "We are free." He dropped into the seat, shut the door, and sat there for a second, with his hands on the wheel and his head tipped back. Lily clapped the sounds small in the enclosed space. "You did it," she said. He managed a tired smile. He lifted one hand in Elena's direction. "Snow is rude," he signed. Then he added, "You okay?" She nodded. "I am okay," she answered. Her eyes went to the snow still clinging to his coat. "You are wet." He shrugged and flicked a bit of melting ice from his cuff. He put the car back in gear, more cautious now than before. They pulled away from the drift slowly, tires feeling for grip, then caught the clearer part of the lane. The rest of the drive slid into a quieter rhythm. The city slipped past on either side of them, a muted version of itself. Shop fronts had turned off their signs. The only bright spots were gas stations and the occasional all-night diner with a few lonely cars outside. At one intersection, a bus crept by and the cross-traffic half empty. The people inside were silhouettes against the interior lights, heads bent over phones or propped against windows. Elena watched them until the bus disappeared into the snow. Block by block, the scenery shifted. Fewer storefronts, more houses and low buildings. Christmas lights tangled in bare tree branches. Plastic reindeer leaning at odd angles under fresh drifts. Jack took a turn onto a narrower street, lined with brick apartment blocks. Their windows glowed in patches, some bright, some dark. A few balconies held small trees or lit shapes in the form of stars. He slowed and steered into a parking lot beside a 3-story building with a faded 3B painted on the side of the entrance. The snow here was packed down in uneven waves from earlier cars. He found an open space near the door and eased the sedan into it. The engine idled for a beat. Then he turned the key and the vibration under Elena's feet faded, leaving only the muffled feel of the storm outside and the hush of the car cooling. In the back seat, Lily unbuckled with a triumphant click. "Home," she said, stretching the word out. Elena looked through the windshield, at the brick facade, at the narrow stairwell window, lit from within, at the faint shadow of someone carrying a laundry basket down a hallway. The building was simple and a little worn. Snow clung in lines to the fire escape. A wreath that had seen better days hung on the front door. It did not look like much from the outside, but the way Lily said home wrapped something warm around the word. The air outside bit at their faces again when they climbed out of the car. Snow had piled along the edges of the lot, turned gray where tires had pushed it aside. The wind ran along the brick walls of the building, catching in the small gap under Elena's collar. She hunched a little, pulling her coat tighter. Jack locked the car with a soft beep. He checked that Lily had her scarf and hat on, straight tugging the knit down over her ears. "Come on," he said, angling his head toward the entrance. They crunched over the packed snow to the front door. Up close, the wreath revealed its age. The red bow had faded to a tired pink, and a few plastic berries were missing from their stems. Someone had tucked a candy cane into the branches. Jack pulled the handle. The door gave way with a reluctant creak. Warm air that smelled faintly of cooking oil floor cleaner and someone's recent attempt at baking met them in the narrow entry. Elena felt the small change in pressure as the door shut behind them. Outside, the storm kept moving. Inside, the stairwell was still. The walls were painted a beige that might once have been white. A row of metal mailboxes lined one side, their labels handwritten and uneven. The floor mat read, "Welcome" in letters worn almost flat. Jack stamped the snow from his boots on the mat, then stepped aside for Elena and Lily to do the same. Water darkened the fibers where the ice melted. "Third floor," he said, tipping his head toward the stairs. They started up. Each step gave a small complaint. Not quite a creak, more a shift of old wood under new weight. The metal rail was cool against Elena's gloved hand. On the second floor landing, a bicycle leaned against the wall, its tires leaving damp marks. Lily bounded ahead, counting under her breath, one hand sliding along the rail. Her breath puffed into the stairwell with each number. At the top, a narrow hallway stretched in both directions. The carpet was thin and patterned with repeating shapes that had long ago lost their color in the center of the path. Doors lined the walls, each with a number and a different style of mat in front. Jack stopped at 3B. The door was plain wood, with some dents low down where something had bumped it more than once. A strip of paper snowflakes, clearly cut by hand, had been taped across the top. Some tips had curled away from the surface. Lily fumbled in her pocket and produced a key on a metal ring. She stepped up with ceremony. "I got it," she said. Jack inclined his head, stepping back as if this was an official duty. Lily fitted the key into the lock tongue between her teeth, in concentration, then turned it. The mechanism clicked. She pushed the door open with a small shove of her shoulder. Warm light leaked into the hallway, soft and yellow. Elena stepped inside. The apartment was not large. The front room opened right from the door. To the left, a sofa with frayed arms sat under a window. To the right, a small table crowded against a wall, covered in drawings. The air smelled of something sweet like vanilla, layered over the simple, clean scent of detergent. The first thing Elena noticed was the tree. It stood in the corner near the window. Shorter than the mall tree by several stories, its branches plastic but more honest about it. A single string of lights hung from the middle down, plugged into an outlet near the floor. The top half was still bare. A box of ornaments sat on the coffee table half open. A few glittery shapes lay scattered nearby, waiting. "Welcome to our chaos," Jack said. He said it lightly. His eyes watched her face. Elena's gaze moved slowly over the room. A bookshelf sagging a little in the middle held more children's books than anything else. Crayons spilled from a mug on top. Next to the drawings on the wall, there were two framed photos. In one, Lily as a toddler stood in a park fountain, drenched, wearing nothing but a diaper and a delighted expression. In the other, Jack smiled at the camera, younger, his arm around a woman with dark hair and a grin so wide it seemed to push the edges of the picture. Elena's attention lingered there for a moment, then moved on. The quiet in the apartment felt different from the quiet in her own place. Here there were traces of recent movement. A pair of shoes kicked off under the table. A throw blanket half slid from the back of the sofa. A mug on the counter with a spoon still inside. "Sit," Jack said, pointing to the couch, then making the motion with his hand as well. She slipped off her shoes by the door, tucking them next to the others, and crossed the room. The carpet under her socks felt thin, but warmer than the staircase. When she sat, the couch gave a small sigh. Lily vanished down the hallway and came back with a patterned blanket folded in her arms. It was the kind of blanket earned by many washes, soft in some places and a little rough in others. "You looked cold," Lily said. She draped it over Elena's shoulders with solemn care, as if crowning her with something important. The weight settled over Elena's collarbones, the fabric warming quickly from her body heat. She mouthed "thank you," then shaped it with her hands as Lily watched. In the kitchen area, Jack moved with the familiarity of habit. He filled a small pot with milk and set it on the stove, dropping in scoops of cocoa and a handful of marshmallows from a nearly empty bag. Elena heard none of the clink of spoon or hiss of burner, but she saw the movements, the way he checked the pot stirred, lifted it slightly to test the heat. She looked down at her hands. The gloves were damp along the edges from the snow. She peeled them off slowly, one finger at a time, and laid them over her knees to dry. The skin underneath was pink and dry. The pads of her fingers showed faint calluses where a pen had rested for years. Those same fingers had clutched the cup in the mall until they ached. Here they rested against worn fabric. Jack appeared with two mugs a few minutes later. He set one on a coaster near her, then sank into the armchair opposite with the other. Steam curled up from the cocoa. Marshmallows bobbed on top, already melting into sticky white islands. Elena wrapped her hands around the mug. The warmth seeped into her palms, chased the last of the cold from her joints. The smell of chocolate rose into the air, rich and familiar. Lily took a spot on the floor near the coffee table, where a half-finished puzzle lay. She sat cross-legged, picking up pieces and trying them, humming tunelessly as she did. Jack reached forward and picked up a small spiral notebook and a pen that had been resting by the ornament box. He flipped to a blank page and wrote a line, then turned the book around and slid it across the table toward Elena. "You do not have to tell me anything you do not want," to the neat letters read. "But if you want someone to listen, I am here." He had drawn a lopsided smile face at the end, as if a small cartoon could make the offer lighter. Elena's mouth curved despite herself. A quiet laugh shook her shoulders. It was not loud enough to reach her own ears, but she felt it. She looked up. Jack watched her eyebrows raised in a question that was not pressure, just an open space. She pulled the notebook toward her. Her penmanship was careful, almost like print, each letter distinct. "My family was supposed to meet me at the mall tonight," she wrote. "They told me to dress up, to be on time. Then they canceled in a message. They say emergency. It happens a lot." She paused, the pen hovering. The room felt very still. Only Lily moved, sliding a puzzle piece into place, chewing on her lip when it did not fit. Elena wrote more. "They do not like that I am deaf. They learn a little sign, then they stop. They talk around me, about me. They forget I can read lips." Her hand hesitated, then continued. "They think something is broken in me." She pushed the notebook back across the table and lifted the mug to her lips, taking a sip to give her hands something to do. Jack read in silence. His eyes scanned each line, his face still. At one point, his throat worked a small swallow. He did not look up until he reached the end. When he did, there was no pity in his expression, only a kind of steady anger that did not flare, just sat under his skin. He took the pen. "They are wrong," he wrote. "You are not broken. You are not an embarrassment." He underlined the "not" once, then stopped himself from going over the line again. He added one more sentence. "I can see that, and I just met you." He slid the notebook back. Elena read it twice. Her eyes blurred at the edges of the words. She blinked, and a tear escaped onto her cheek. She swiped it away with the back of her hand, but more followed, slipping free before she could catch all of them. She let out a breath that trembled a little. Her fingers went to the inside pocket of her coat, almost without thinking. They closed around the familiar weight of the envelope. She pulled it out and set it on the table between the two mugs. Her hands hovered over it for a second. Then she pushed it toward him. The paper made a faint slide against the wood. Jack looked at the envelope, then at her. His brows flicked up in a silent question. She gave a small nod. He opened it carefully, fingers sliding along the flap. The watercolor card came out first. A room with a tree light suggested in pale yellow strokes 4 figures on a couch without faces, but with clear body language. You could tell who leaned into whom, just by the curve of a shoulder. He smiled at the detail, then unfolded the second sheet. His eyes landed on her name printed at the top. The bold heading underneath caught his attention. The words International Illustration Competition and winner sat side by side, followed by the name of a gallery that he recognized even if he had never been there. He read the rest more slowly. When he looked up, something new had joined the anger in his face. "You won this," he said, shaping each word for her. "This is a big deal." He did not bother to hide the admiration in his voice. Lily noticed the shift. She crawled closer on her knees. "What is it?" she asked. Jack handed her the paper, careful not to crumple it. "Your new friend," he said with a tilt of his head toward Elena, "won a prize. For her art. A very important one." Lily's eyes went wide as she scanned the page, even if the formal language slid past her. "She is famous," Lily breathed. She dropped the paper back onto the table and launched herself forward, arms wrapping around Elena's shoulders. Elena froze for half a heartbeat. Then her arms came up of their own accord, returning the hug. Lily's hair smelled of the shampoo with the cartoon fish on the bottle. Her small body fit perfectly against Elena's chest. "You are really good at drawing," Lily said into her sweater. Elena laughed, the sound thick. She looked over the top of Lily's head at Jack. He was watching them, the certificate on the table between them. His eyes held something like respect, but also a quiet question. "Why did you have to show this to me instead of to them?" Elena reached for the notebook again, keeping one arm around Lily. "My family did not stay to see this," she wrote. "They do not know I won. They did not ask." She set the pen down. "You saw it," she added. "You care. You and Lily. You are strangers." Her hand hovered for a second, then finished the thought. "Why?" Jack read the page slowly. His thumb rested on the edge of the notebook, the skin there still pink from the cold outside. He took the pen. "Because some things matter," he wrote. "Because no one should sit alone with good news." He paused, then added one more line. Because you deserve someone to be proud. He slid the notebook back and let the words sit between them, solid as any gift. Elena read the words again. Because you deserve someone to be proud. They sat on the page in simple ink heavier than anything else in the room. Her fingers rested on the edge of the notebook. Heat from the mug still seeped into her palms. Her throat burned in a way that had nothing to do with cocoa. Lily stayed tucked against her side as if the hug had turned into a new default position. When Elena shifted, the girl shifted with her. "Can we hang some ornaments now?" Lily asked, tipping her head back to look up. Jack glanced at the clock on the microwave. The green digits showed a time later than Elena expected. "Yeah," he said, "tree emergency." He pushed himself up from the chair and crossed to the ornament box. The cardboard flaps had softened from years of use. He folded them back and lifted out a handful of pieces. They were a mix of things. Shiny balls from a discount pack, salt dough shapes with names pressed into them, a crooked paper star laminated in clear tape. He held one up between thumb and forefinger. Glitter flaked off onto his hand. "Elena," he said, carefully making sure she watched his mouth. "Help us make this look less sad." She smiled and nodded. She slipped out from under the blanket and let it slide down onto the couch. Her socks whispered against the carpet as she crossed to the tree. Up close, the plastic needles looked even more artificial, but there was a strange charm in the way they caught the light. The string of bulbs that already hung around the middle blinked in a slow pattern. Lily dug through the box. "This one is from when I was 3, she said, lifting a lumpy white shape. "It is supposed to be a snowman. It looks like a potato with eyes." Elena laughed, a small sound in her own chest. "Where should we put potato snowman?" Jack asked. Lily considered the tree as if it were a serious problem. Elena bent slightly, studying the branches. Her artist's eye began to place patches of color without thinking about it. She pointed to a spot lower down, a gap between 2 red ornaments. There she signed her fingers, doing the motion with gentle certainty. Lily copied the gesture, then hung the snowman in the chosen place. The string loop slipped once, then settled. They worked like that for a while, Jack handling the higher branches, reaching easily to adjust anything that drooped too much. Elena guiding the balance of color and shape, Lily telling stories for almost every piece she picked up. "This one is from my kindergarten teacher," she said, holding a wooden star painted blue at only half its surface. "I got bored. This one used to belong to my grandma." Jack added, cradling a glass ball with a fading silver pattern. "Lily is not allowed to touch this one, ever." Lily rolled her eyes but stepped back to give him room. Elena moved around the tree, her hands busy, her mind quieter than it had been in days. Light reflected in the small metal caps of the ornaments and on the curve of the glass. When she reached up for a branch, her sleeve slipped back, exposing the narrow bones of her wrist. Jack noticed the way her fingers handled each piece, precise and gentle, like placing details in a drawing. At one point, Lily tugged on Elena's sleeve. "Dad, show her the sign," Lily said. "The house one." Jack frowned in thought for a second, then set the ornament he was holding back in the box. He wiped his hands on his jeans as if that would help him remember. He turned to Elena. "There is one more sign we know he signed using both hands. It is a good one." He placed his fingertips together above his head, forming a rough triangle, then brought them down to rest against each other near his chest. "Home." He said it aloud with it slow. "Home," he repeated, this time only with his hands. Lily did it too, her smaller fingers making the same shape. Elena watched them. The sign sat in the space between gesture and feeling. Roof, walls, shelter. She had used it before, of course. She had used it for her parents' house, for the apartment she rented now, for places that technically counted. She lifted her own hands and copied the motion, fingers touching above, then together near her chest. "Home," she signed. The word lingered in the air like dust in a shaft of light. Lily grinned. "Now we all know it," she said. They finished the ornaments. The box emptied until only tissue paper remained. The tree, though small, looked full and deliberate. "Lights," Lily said, practically vibrating. "We have to do the lights." "There is only the one strand," Jack said. "It still counts," Lily declared. Jack bent and plugged the cord into the wall. The bulbs along the lower half of the tree brightened, casting a patterned glow over the room. The bare upper branches caught the stray light, their shadows reaching long up the wall. They all stepped back to admire it. The tree was not perfect. The star leaned a little, and Potato Snowman hung slightly crooked. One side had more red than the other. Still, something about it felt exactly right. The room seemed warmer in its glow. Lily wandered off to her room to retrieve something, humming as she went. Jack picked up a few stray hooks from the coffee table. Elena moved closer to the photos on the wall, drawn again to the picture of the younger Jack with the dark-haired woman. He noticed where she was looking. He stepped beside her and tapped the frame lightly. "Rose," he said, lips forming the name. He pointed to the woman. Then he signed, with his hand brushing his ring finger and moving forward a motion he had learned but rarely used. Elena nodded. The woman's smile was open and bright, the kind that seemed to spill over. Jack's gaze rested on the photo for a moment, then he looked away. "Car accident," he said, shaping the words for her eyes. His hand made a small and steady motion in the air, then dropped. Lily was 2. He did not sign more. He did not need to. The missing details filled the space on their own. Elena's hand lifted, then fell, unsure if she should offer comfort and what form it should take. He gave a short, tight smile, the kind that acknowledged the weight, while waving away the need to dig through it. Before either of them could say anything else, a sharp knock sounded at the door. The vibration reached Elena first through the floor and the air. Not loud, but insistent. 3 quick hits, a pause, then 2 more. Jack turned his head toward the sound. His shoulders changed shape. Lily's footsteps pattered back down the hallway. She held something behind her back. "Who is that?" she asked. Jack moved toward the door, motioning for Lily to stay back. He checked the peephole, then stilled. His hand tightened on the knob. He looked over his shoulder at Elena, his brows pulled together in a line she had not seen yet on his face. He opened the door a fraction. The hallway light framed a woman in a long wool coat that did not have a single flake of snow on it. Her dark hair was pulled into a sleek twist. Diamond studs caught the glow from the ceiling fixture. Elena, her mouth formed, though the tone was not visible. "There you are." Jack stepped back enough for the woman to see into the apartment. Her eyes swept the room in a single practiced scan. Tree, couch, ornament box. Elena standing with the blanket half off her shoulders. The stranger moved past Jack without waiting for an invitation. Her heels made dull taps on the old carpet. Lily retreated instinctively until her back brushed the side of the sofa. She slid one hand along the couch until her fingers found Elena's. Elena stood very still. "Caroline," she said with no sound. Her lips shaped the name. Her sister's eyes narrowed. "Do you have any idea?" Caroline began speaking fast, the words tumbling. Her mouth sharpened around each one. "What mother has been thinking? You disappear, and then she gets a call that you were seen leaving the mall with some man." Elena caught only part of it. Call, mother, disappear, some man. The rest blurred. She looked at Jack. He stepped closer to her shoulder, not touching, but within reach. "This is my sister Elena," signed to him, small and quick. He nodded once. "I am Jack," he said to Caroline, his mouth calm. "I think there is a lot we do not know yet." Caroline's gaze flicked to him, measuring, then returned to Elena. "You have people worried," she said. "You cannot just go off with strangers. You cannot do this." She gestured around the room, as if the walls themselves were an insult. Her eyes landed on the sagging couch, the worn carpet, the patched arm of the chair. They lingered on the slightly crooked tree, on Lily, who stared back with a frown that did not belong on a face that young. "You do not belong here," Caroline said. Elena watched her mouth shape belong. The word hit harder than she expected. Her fingers tightened on the blanket. Lily stepped forward half a pace, still holding Elena's hand. "She is a guest," Lily said, voice small but clear. "She helped with the tree." Caroline blinked briefly, thrown by the interruption. "This is not your concern, sweetheart," she said, the last word flat. Her eyes went back to Elena. "You are coming home," she said. "Get your things." The room shrank for Elena in a familiar way. The air pressed in. Old reflexes carved by years of deferring shifted under her skin. Jack moved. He stepped fully between Caroline and Elena, not blocking Elena's view of his face, but intercepting Caroline's line of sight just enough. As he spoke, he kept one hand low where Elena could see it, shaping simple signs. "Hold on," he said, Listy's lips steady. His fingers matched the idea. "Wait. She is an adult," he continued. "She is safe. No one forced her to do anything." Caroline laughed once, a sound Elena could not hear, but saw in the sharp movement of her shoulders and mouth. "Oh, that is comforting," she said. "A complete stranger assuring me that my deaf sister is safe in his apartment on Christmas Eve." The word deaf came out too hard, like something sharp thrown on the table. Lily flinched. Elena felt heat run up her neck. Jack's jaw set. "I met her because she was sitting alone," he said. His hand spelled alone, each letter deliberate. "Your family canceled. Did you know that part?" Caroline's gaze flickered just for a second. "That is not the point," she said. "It is part of it," he answered. Lily tugged at Elena's hand and whispered without taking her eyes off Caroline. "She is being rude," Lily said. Elena's lips moved in a humorless breath of agreement. Caroline took a step closer. "You always do this," she said, her mouth slowing with the weight of the words. "You make everything drama. You turn small problems into disasters. Mother did not need this tonight. Mother, the way she formed it said more than the letters. Duty, image, burden. Elena's hands lifted without her fully deciding. You did not come, she signed the movement sharper than usual. You said emergency. You did not ask if I was okay. Caroline watched her hands, then huffed out a breath. I am not good at that, she said. We have talked about this. You did not try, Elena signed back. Her heart raced. Her knees felt slightly unsteady. She stayed where she was. Caroline's eyes flashed. You are embarrassing yourself, she said. And us. The last word flattened her mouth. Lily's fingers slipped from Elena's and balled into fists at her sides. She is not embarrassing, Lily burst out. She is nice. She is good at drawing. You did not even say hi. Caroline turned to her. This is not your business, she said again. It is, Lily insisted. She is our guest. Jack put a hand lightly on Lily's shoulder, both to steady her and to pull her back a little. He turned to Elena, lifting his free hand. His face was serious, brows drawn, but his movements were careful. He pointed to Caroline, then to the door, then to Elena's chest. She wants you to go, he signed. With her. His fingers spelled sister to avoid confusion. He paused. Then he pointed to the couch, to Lily, to himself. Or you can stay here tonight. His eyes did not tell her which answer to pick. They only held steady, giving her a place to look that was not the sharpness in Caroline's face. You choose, he signed. The motion was small but clear. The room seemed to hold its breath. Elena's hands hovered in the air between them, caught in the space where a decision waited to be shaped. Elena's hands shook in the space between them. Caroline watched her arms folded coat, still buttoned all the way up. Snow had not dared touch her. Her hair was perfect. Her expression waited for Elena to fall back into the shape she knew. Lily's small fingers brushed against Elena's hand, a tiny point of contact. Elena drew a breath that felt like it scraped the inside of her chest. Her shoulders rose, then settled. Her hands lifted higher. No, she signed. The word was simple. It hung in the air like a stone dropped into still water. Caroline's brows went up just a fraction. Elena swallowed. Her heart knocked hard against her ribs. She shaped the next sentence with care. I am not going with you. Her hands were steadier now. Each motion landed where it was meant to. Caroline stared. What are you talking about? She said. Do not be ridiculous. Elena did not sit down. She did not drop her gaze. Here, she signed, touching her chest, then letting her hand drift out to take in the room, Lily the tree. I am not a problem. I am not broken. She drew the sign for broken and then shook her head sharply to cancel it. Caroline's mouth thinned. This is insane, she said. You do not know these people. You met them at a mall. Elena took a step forward. Her legs felt unsteady, but they held. I know how you treat me, she signed. Her hands cut the air. I know you did not come. I know you did not stay for my news. Her fingers tapped her coat where the envelope had rested. You did not ask. Jack translated none of this for Caroline. He watched Elena letting her own hands carry the moment. Caroline's gaze flicked to Lily, to Jack, then back. You are making a scene, she said, in front of a child no less. Lily bristled. I am right here, Lily said. And she is not a scene. You are the one yelling. Caroline ignored her. You are coming home, she said again. Mother is upset. She has been crying. She thinks you have run off. Do you want to do that to her? The guilt landed on the table between them, like something heavy and well used. Elena felt it out of habit, a familiar weight in a familiar place. It pushed against her ribs. It tried to bow her shoulders. She thought of the text on her phone. Emergency. We can't make it tonight. We'll reschedule. She thought of the envelope she had carried all afternoon. The way her mother's voice had sounded last week, when she had said without looking away from her emails, maybe another time when things are calmer. Her hands lifted once more. You left me sitting alone, she signed. You did not think about me then. Caroline's lips parted. No sound came out for a second. You are so dramatic, she managed. We had things to deal with. Life does not stop because you have feelings. Lily let out a small sound that was half scoff, half gasp. Jack's hand tightened slightly on her shoulder. Elena's pulse thudded in her ears. Even in her silence, she could feel it. She did something she almost never did. She stepped closer to Caroline. Close enough to see the faint smear where lipstick had feathered at the corner of her mouth. Close enough to see the fine lines at the edges of her eyes. Her hands moved between them low so Jack and Lily could see, but angled toward her sister. I am making a choice, she signed. Not a scene. A choice. She pointed to her own chest. I choose to stay where people see me. Her hand moved back, indicating Jack and Lily, the tree, the scattered puzzle pieces on the floor. Not as an embarrassment, she signed. As a person. The last word landed with a small, firm shake of her wrist. Caroline's eyes glistened for a heartbeat, then hardened. "You are throwing away your family for this," she said. She gestured at the room again, at the worn furniture, the crooked star, the child pressing closer to Elena's side. "For spaghetti and some cheap lights." Elena almost laughed. The sound came out as a breath. "Family," she signed. Her fingers drew the shape with care. "You always tell me what that word means. For you it means perfect picture, perfect sound." She shook her head. "For me it means this." She opened both hands, fingers spread, palms up, as if presenting something fragile and real. "People who care, I am here." For a long second no one moved. Caroline's shoulders rose with a sharp inhale. "Fine," she said. The word cut quick. "Stay here, if that is what you want. When it falls apart, do not come crying back. Do not expect us to pick up the pieces. I am done chasing you when you make bad decisions." Her gaze slid to Jack. "And you," she added, "you do not know what you are getting into." Jack met her look without flinching. "Maybe not," he said, "but I know she deserves better than being talked about like she is not in the room." He did not sign that part. The angle of his body made it clear who the words were for. Caroline turned on her heel. She yanked the door open. The wreath shook, dropping a crushed plastic berry to the floor. The hallway beyond seemed colder, the light harsher. For one fraction of a second she glanced back. Something moved across her face, a flicker that might have been uncertainty or hurt, or just annoyance at the draft. Then she stepped out. The door closed behind her, with a hard, hollow sound that Elena felt in her chest, more than in her ears. The lock clicked as the latch caught. Silence spread from the wood into the room. Elena's knees loosened. She sat down hard on the nearest edge of the couch. The blanket shifted under her. The sudden change in height made the room tilt slightly. Her hands dropped into her lap, palms up. They trembled. Lily slid in beside her, without hesitation. The girl tucked herself against Elena's side, small body solid and warm. "You were really brave," Lily said, eyes wide, voice hushed, as if they were in a library. Elena caught the word brave in the movement of her mouth. It did not fit how she felt. Her heart still hammered. Her breath still came a little too fast. Her hands would not quite still. Jack crossed the room and crouched in front of them, so Elena did not have to crane her neck. He lifted his hands. "Brave," he signed, reflecting Lily's word. His fingers tapped his chest, then pointed gently toward Elena. "You." He held her gaze. She shook her head. "I am shaking," she signed back, showing her trembling fingers with a little embarrassed huff of breath. He gave a small smile. "Brave is not about not shaking," he signed. "It is about what you do while you shake." The translation was rough in his hands, more concept than exact phrasing, but the intent carried. Her eyes stung again. She blinked fast. "I do not know if I can do this," she signed. She did not define this. It hung between them thick with meaning, saying no, standing up, staying. Jack nodded. Maybe not all at once, he signed. His hands moved slow, but you did it now. He sat back on his heels for a second, then straightened. "Come on," he said to Lily. "Bedtime." Lily groaned in protest, but did not argue too hard. She hugged Elena tight one more time, arms clamping around her ribs. "Do not let the tree leave without me," she said. Elena smiled, confused and amused, until Jack translated with a small shake of his head. "She thinks the ornaments are going to climb off if she is not looking," he said. Lily disappeared down the hallway, her door clicking shut behind her. The apartment settled. Jack collected the empty mugs and carried them to the sink. The water ran. The soft clink of ceramic against porcelain vibrated faintly through the counter and the floor. Elena stayed on the couch. The blanket lay pooled beside her. She pulled it back over her lap, fingers slipping under the edge, holding on. The tree lights blinked gently, washing the room in pulses of gold and green. Shadows from the branches moved across the ceiling. Her phone sat where she had dropped it on the coffee table earlier. Its screen was dark. She reached for it. The glass felt cool under her thumb as she unlocked it. The family group chat still sat near the top, unread since the message at the mall. She opened it. The last text was still there. "Emergency. We can't make it tonight. We'll reschedule." A few stickers trailed above it from earlier in the week. Thumbs up. A laughing face. A calendar reminder for some charity event. Her own messages sat higher, small black bubbles, with no responses underneath. "Sounds good. I will be there. Looking forward to it." She stared at them until her eyes burned. Then slowly she tapped the small icons at the top that led to the settings for the thread. "Leave conversation," the prompt asked. Her finger hesitated. She thought of the closet door at 14. The feeling of slamming wood. The sense that the only person who would open it for her was also the one who had closed it. She pressed the screen. The thread dropped out of the list. the gap where it had been closed as other chats slid up to fill the space. Her home screen returned. Her painted wallpaper glowed there. It was a digital version of the card she kept in her pocket. The same room, the same tree, the faceless figures on the couch. Only this time, without thinking, she had drawn 3. Her thumb hovered over the image. Across the room, Jack turned off the kitchen light, leaving only the tree and a small lamp by the armchair. He walked back and nodded toward the couch. "You can take that side," he said, lips forming each word slowly. He pointed to the end where she sat. "I will grab you another pillow." She watched him move, watched him pull a spare pillow and a folded sheet from a small hall closet. He placed them within reach, then stepped back. His hands lifted one more time. "If you need anything," he signed, pointing to his chest, then to the hallway where his door was. "Knock." She nodded. "Thank you," she signed, shaping it with both her hands and her eyes. He gave a small, tired smile. "Good night, Elena," he said. Then he turned off the lamp. The room dimmed to the soft glow of the tree. Colors pooled on the walls. The shadows of branches and ornaments painted patterns across the ceiling. Outside, snow still fell, brushing against the window in faint bursts. Elena lay down, pulling the blanket up to her chin. The couch springs adjusted under her weight. The faint smell of laundry detergent and cocoa clung to the fabric. The silence was still there, as it had always been, but it felt altered. It no longer pressed against her from all sides. It lay beside her instead, like another folded blanket. Her hands tucked under her cheek finally went still. Light woke her before a sound could. It pressed against her eyelids in a gentle, steady way, not the thin blue of street lamps, but a softer brightness. Elena surfaced from sleep, slowly aware, first of warmth along her side, then the scratch of the blanket against her chin, then the firmness of the couch beneath her shoulder. She opened her eyes. Morning sat on the other side of the window. Snow covered the world from sill to skyline, clean and undisturbed. The glass glowed with reflected light so bright it almost seemed to hum. For a second she did not know where she was. The tree in the corner reminded her. Its lights were off now, but tinsel and ornaments caught pieces of daylight, throwing them back in small, dull flashes. Potato Snowman leaned at his slightly crooked angle. The paper star still tilted stubbornly imperfect. Elena exhaled. The breath misted a little in the cool air above the blanket. She stretched her toes under the fabric, feeling the resistance of the tucked sheet. The apartment smelled faintly of coffee and something toasting. Her stomach answered with a low twist. A door opened down the short hallway. Lily emerged, hair loose and rumpled pajamas patterned with tiny snowflakes. She walked on the balls of her feet, at first, then spotted Elena and broke into a grin. She lifted a hand and waved. Mourning, her mouth formed. Elena pushed herself up to sitting, the blanket sliding into her lap. Her neck ached in a dull, satisfying way that said she really had slept there. She raised her own hand in return. "Good morning," she signed, the motion still a little sluggish. Lily crossed to the couch, her socked feet whispering against the carpet. She held something behind her back, clutched in both hands. "I have something for you," she said. Elena's brows rose. Lily stepped closer and brought her hands forward. A small bundle wrapped in white tissue paper and tied with a short piece of red yarn rested there. The wrapping was bunched in places where smaller hands had struggled to fold smooth corners. Elena looked from the package to Lily's face. "For me," she mouthed, shaping the words. Lily nodded vigorously. "For you," she said, then added in a careful echo of her father, "No pressure, but you should open it." Elena smiled. Her fingers slipped under the knot of yarn. It came loose with a little tug. The tissue paper crackled as she peeled it back. Inside lay a pair of knitted gloves. They were cream-colored, soft, the yarn slightly uneven in thickness. A single crooked stripe of red wound around each wrist, not quite straight. One thumb was a little shorter than the other. The stitches near the fingertips pulled tight in some places and looser in others. They were beautiful. Elena lifted one. The glove sagged a little in her hand, not yet shaped by anyone's fingers. She could see the places where tension had changed, where someone had learned as they went. "I made them," Lily said, words tumbling out. Her eyes tracked Elena's reaction like it was the most important thing in the room. "Dad showed me how to start, and then I watched videos. They are not perfect. One is bigger. But I thought your hands are always talking and they get cold." She mimed rubbing her own hands together. So she finished, cheeks pink with effort and a little embarrassment. Now they do not have to. Elena's throat closed. Her fingers slipped inside the glove. The yarn stretched to meet them. It was snug, but not tight. Her nails caught once on a loose loop, then slid past. She pulled the glove on all the way, then did the same with the other. They fit. Her fingers flexed. The wool warmed quickly, holding in the heat from her skin. She curled her hands and uncurled them. The fabric moved with her, leaving enough space to shape signs. Her hands rose. "You made these," she signed, holding them out where Lily could see. "For me." Lily nodded again, more shy now that the gift was out. Elena swallowed. "Thank you," she signed. The movement felt too small. She reached out and pulled Lily into a hug, gloves scratching lightly against the cotton of the girl's pajamas. Lily burrowed an arm circling her waist. From the hallway, Jack watched for a second. He leaned against the doorframe, a mug in each hand. His hair stood up in uneven directions. His t-shirt had a faded logo from some company picnic years ago. The smell of coffee drifted from the mugs, mingled with the buttery scent of toast. When Elena glanced up, he straightened and walked into the room. He set one mug on the coffee table in front of her. Dark liquid sat inside, freshly poured. Steam rose in thin threads. "Coffee," he said, forming the word clearly. He pointed to the kitchen. "Food in a minute." Lily released Elena and dropped onto the floor near the couch, already reaching for a stray puzzle piece. Elena wrapped her hands around the mug. The heat soaked through the wool, finding the spaces between stitches. It felt different than the night before, less desperate, just warm. Jack sat in the armchair again, the same place as the previous evening, but his posture was looser now. He held his own mug in one hand and let his other rest on his knee. For a while they sat in easy quiet. Lily pushed pieces of cardboard around, occasionally scrutinizing the picture on the box. The tree kept its daytime glow. Outside the window, a neighbor shuffled across the shared lot, bundled in a thick coat, leaving deep footprints. Jack set his mug down and reached for the notebook. He flipped past the pages from last night, the words about family and broken and wrong, until he found another blank space. He wrote more slowly this time, thinking between lines. "We are glad you stayed last night," he wrote. "It was good to have you here." He paused, pen hovering over the paper. He added, "Lily loves having someone to share the couch with." Then he stopped chewing inside his cheek for a second. He took a breath and continued. "I know this is fast, and a lot," he wrote. "You met us yesterday, but if you need time before you figure out what is next, you can stay here for a while." He underlined the word "can" light enough that the paper did not tear. "No rent," he added. "No rules except the usual house stuff. Just a safe place." He looked at what he had written. It felt too heavy, too official. He drew a small arrow at the bottom and added one more sentence. "If you want." He turned the notebook around and slid it toward Elena. She set her coffee down and pulled the notebook closer. Her eyes moved along each line, her brow furrowing slightly in concentration. When she reached the end, her gaze stayed on the last 4 words. "If you want." She read the whole thing again, slower. Her chest felt full as she did tight in a way that was not quite painful. She was very aware of the weight of the gloves on her hands, of the heat of the coffee near her knee, of Lily humming quietly as she searched for a puzzle edge. Her thoughts ran in circles. Her apartment with its cracked window and humming fridge, the single string of lights over the sinks, the stack of sketchbooks on her desk, her mother's voice on the phone last week, brisk and full of errands, the silence after Elena had mentioned the competition, this apartment, the crooked tree, the photos on the wall, the extra pillow Jack had found for her on the couch, the way he had moved his hands in the mall, the way Lily's face had lit up when she had laughed. It was too fast, too strange, too kind. Her pen lay on the table. She picked it up. Her handwriting was slower this morning, as if each letter weighed more. "I do not know what I am doing," she wrote. "Not yet." She paused. "I know I am tired of being where I feel wrong," she added, "where I feel like I should not talk or take up space." Her throat worked as she formed the next line. "Here so far I feel like I can breathe." She tapped the pen once against the paper, then wrote the last sentence. "If the offer is real, I would like to stay, for a while." She hesitated, then drew a small rectangle shape next to the words, a quick sketch of a couch, with a blanket draped over the back, and a little scribbled tree in the corner. She turned the notebook back to Jack. He read, lips moving unconsciously with the words. For a moment, his expression went very still. Then his shoulders dropped, as if he had been holding something there without knowing. He let out a breath and smiled. "Good," he said. He caught himself and picked up the pen again, adding beneath her lines. "It is real." He looked up and met her eyes, then pointed at the drawing of the couch. "This is yours as long as you need it," he said, forming the sentence slowly with his mouth. His hands echoed the core idea, if not every word. Lily had been watching from the floor, pretending not to. "Does that mean she is staying?" Lily asked, sitting up straighter. Jack tipped his head. "If she wants to," he said. Both of them looked at Elena. The choice was already on the page in front of her. It still felt important to say it out loud in her own way. She took the pen one more time. On a fresh line in letters that did not waver, she wrote 3 words. "I want to stay." Jack read them and nodded. Lily squealed and launched herself at Elena again, knocking the notebook askew and nearly sloshing the coffee. Elena caught the mug in one gloved hand, laughing. The sound shook loose in her chest, unfamiliar and right at the same time. Lily pulled back just enough to sign, her fingers moving with determined care. Home, she signed, hands forming the little roof against her chest. She looked up at Elena, waiting. Elena's eyes stung. She lifted her hands, the cream wool of the gloves soft against her skin. Home, she signed back. The words settled somewhere deep, quieter than the fear, louder than the echoes of her sister's voice. Breakfast turned into more of an event than any of them had planned. Jack burned the first batch of toast and filled the kitchen with a faint smell of charcoal. Lily waved a dish towel dramatically under the smoke detector, standing on a chair while Jack cracked eggs into a bowl. Elena watched from the doorway, shoulder against the frame, the new gloves folded on the back of the couch. Her hands were bare as she tucked loose hair behind one ear. Jack looked over when he felt her eyes. "You like eggs?" he asked, shaping the word clear. She nodded. He tapped the pan. "Scrambled," he said. She made the sign for eggs, and then for scrambled, more for herself than for him. The familiarity of moving her hands in the language of small things felt grounding. At the table, Lily set out 3 plates, all mismatched. One had a thin blue ring around the rim, another a faded floral pattern. She placed forks carefully, then ran back to the living room to drag the coffee table closer so it could serve as an extra surface. When they finally sat down, the food was simple. Eggs toast that was more golden than burnt, this time a few slices of apple. They ate with the easy clatter of people who had already spent enough time together to not feel the need to fill every pause. Lily talked the most, gesturing with her fork, telling a long story about a school play where a backdrop had fallen over. Jack added pieces clarifying names and events, occasionally correcting Lily's more dramatic embellishments. He made sure to look at Elena when he spoke, slowing down key words with his mouth, or repeating them with his hands. Elena listened, eyes moving from face to face, catching the rhythm of their conversation, even when she could not follow every word. Each shared look, each little nudge under the table sketched a line between the two of them. She felt those lines begin to stretch very gently to include her. When the plates were mostly empty, Lily bounced in her chair. "Presents," she said. Jack raised an eyebrow. "I thought we were waiting till after lunch," he said. Lily slumped. "Please," she said. "We already waited all the way till breakfast. That is like a year." He glanced at Elena. She held up her hands, palms out, and smiled. "No opinion." "Fine," he said. "Small ones now." Lily cheered and scrambled down from her chair, nearly knocking it over. She darted to her room and came back with 3 small packages, each wrapped in different paper that had clearly been reused at least once. She dropped one in front of Elena, one in front of Jack, and kept the last for herself. "This one is from me," she said to Elena, though the gloves had already covered that. "This one is from Dad." Jack slid the package toward Elena with a little shrug. "Not as impressive as the gloves," he said. She pulled at the tape carefully. Inside, folded very neat, was a plain canvas tote bag. On the front, in simple black letters, someone had printed a line. "Everyone deserves to be heard." The words sat centered, no decoration around them. Underneath, in smaller letters, a little logo of the community center where Jack had once worked. He rubbed the back of his neck when she looked up. "Old merch from where I used to help out," he said. "Figured you might need something to carry sketchbooks, or groceries, or both." She traced the letters lightly with one finger. "Thank you," she signed, lifting her eyes to his. He nodded. Lily ripped into her own package next. Inside was a set of colored pencils all lined up in a metal tin. "Now your horses can look like horses," Jack said. "They will still look like potatoes," Lily said, "but now colorful ones." They laughed. Elena dug in her bag for a second, suddenly nervous that what she had brought would not fit or would feel too much. She had not known last night in the mall that she would be sitting here. Still, some instinct had made her tuck one extra thing into her coat. She pulled it out now, fingertips catching on the edge of the paper. It was a small envelope, not as thick as the one with the certificate. Inside, she had slipped 2 prints she had made weeks ago at the copy shop when testing different papers. One showed a man and a little girl from behind sitting on a park bench. The man's shoulders were broad. The girl's braids were uneven. Between them, their hands rested together on the wood, a cluster of simple sign shapes sketched in the air. The other print was of a living room, with a tree not unlike the one in the corner here. 3 figures sat on a couch, faceless but clear in posture. One adult, one child between them, one more adult, just a little apart but leaning in. She laid the prints on the table in front of Jack and Lily. "For you," she signed. Jack picked them up slowly. His thumb brushed the edge of the bench drawing. His eyes lingered on the way she had drawn Lily's hands, the slight exaggeration of motion that made the signs readable even on paper. "These are us," Lily said, awed. Elena nodded. "Sort of," she signed with a small twist of her mouth. Jack swallowed. "Thank you," he said, each syllable clear. He did not try to say more. The lines of his face said enough. After the dishes were stacked in the sink and the table cleared, Lily insisted on showing Elena her room. It was small walls lined with drawings and taped up magazine pictures, the bed unmade, a stuffed bear missing an ear propped on the pillow. Elena stood in the doorway taking it in. Lily pointed to a blank space of wall near the window. "Your picture can go there," she said, "if you want." Elena smiled and nodded, picturing the prints framed the paper turning softer with time. Later they ended up back in the living room. A movie played on the television, some holiday classic with bright colors and exaggerated expressions. Jack turned the sound low, out of habit, and clicked the subtitles on. The words crawled across the bottom of the screen, sometimes a little too fast, but Elena's eyes were used to moving quickly. She settled into her corner of the couch, legs curled under the blanket. Lily lay on her stomach on the rug, chin in her hands, coloring in one of her drawings with the new pencils. Every so often she looked up to comment on something in the movie, pointing and miming. Jack sat at the other end of the couch, ankle resting on his opposite knee. Every once in a while he glanced down the line of cushions, checking the distance, checking that she still looked comfortable. Outside, the day moved slowly. A neighbor dragged a shovel along the walkway, carving out paths that would only partly refill by evening. A dog in an oversized sweater bounced through the snow before its owner called it back. Inside, the same tree that had stood in the corner all night now watched over a new arrangement. At some point during the second movie, Lily migrated. She started at the foot of the couch, then inched closer, then closer, until she ended up half on Elena's lap, half against Jack's leg. The blanket pulled over them all in a shared tangle. Her eyes slipped closed. Jack reached down and smoothed her hair away from her face. She did not stir. Elena looked at her, at the way her small hand had come to rest near Elena's hip, fingers curled. The weight of her trusting was a quiet anchor. She glanced toward Jack. He had turned his head at the same moment. Their eyes met over Lily's sleeping figure. For a breath, the movie flickered in front of them, forgotten. The subtitles rolled by, ignored. Jack's mouth tipped into a faint, almost shy curve. He lifted his hand, careful not to jostle Lily. "Family," he signed. He shaped the word slowly, making sure each part was right. His fingers linked together in the simple gesture. Then he pointed to Lily, to himself, and with a small hesitation that looked more like hope than doubt to Elena. His eyes held hers, asking a question without pressing for an answer. Elena's throat tightened. She looked down at Lily, at the small, warm weight between them, at the blanket covering all three of them, at the tree lights reflected faintly in the black of the blank television screen when the movie ended and Jack forgot to start another. She thought of the sign they had shared earlier. Home. Her hands eased out from under the blanket. She formed the shape of a roof over them, fingertips touching above Lily's head, then brought her hands down to rest against her chest. "Home," she signed, looking back at Jack. Then deliberately she echoed his earlier motion. "Family." Her fingers linked steady. The small lines around Jack's eyes deepened, as his smile grew not sudden, but sure. He reached across the back of the couch, not touching her, not yet, just letting his arm rest there, a quiet arc around the space they shared. His shoulders relaxed. The room held a new kind of stillness, not empty, not waiting. Just three shapes on a couch, one sleeping, two awake, breathing the same air lit by the soft glow of a tree in a corner of a third-floor apartment. Outside the window, snow fell in fine, slow flakes, each one small and separate, until it landed and became part of something wider. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story.